I want to tell you something gratifying to me. I located last week a video copy of the very first television documentary I did. In fact, it was the very first time I was ever on television, right? Fresh out of the UC Berkeley faculty and beginning a radio career when Westinghouse Broadcasting Company asked me to narrate a documentary. I didn't think too much of it at the time. I didn't understand its importance. The title, though, was The Last Days of the Dolphins, which didn't quite grab me at the time until I saw some of the film. Well, it turned out that this expose, and it really is worth looking at, was about to be aired, and most of the celebrities around the country who had been asked to narrate it backed out because the big advertisers, the food giants, threatened to boycott their shows. Pretty damning when you take a look at it. So I stepped in and I narrated the film. It was aired on a Sunday night, 1 hour, by the Westinghouse Broadcasting Corporation. The following Tuesday, the Congress of the United States outlawed the use of the nets, the fishing nets, that had been killing millions of dolphins, several estimated 500,000 a year for decades. That was very significant. Within a month, the fishing fleets were all back in business with new nets that allowed the dolphins to escape. So it was truly very gratifying to stop something that was horribly unnecessary, just wanton slaughter of the dolphins out of laziness. And the fishing industry kept saying, oh, well, we'll gradually improve and so forth. It wasn't happening. You can see an edited version of The Last Days of the Dolphins posted on the Talk Radio Network, on my webpage on the Talk Radio Network. Very easy to go there. Simply log on to TRN for Talk Radio Network, numeral 1, TRN1.com. That'll take you to the home page of the Talk Radio Network. You'll see all the folks there, all the hosts on their various programs. Over on the left side, scroll way down to my face. Click on that. That'll take you to my webpage. And there you will find posted the YouTube video. And it's up on YouTube now. You can go directly to YouTube. Most of you know how. Simply type in The Last Days of the Dolphins or just Last Days of the Dolphins. And it'll pop up. It's only been up there for a couple of days. Not many hits as yet. But I think it's something you'll find gratifying to see what was done. Really, to the credit of the Westinghouse Broadcasting Company that had the courage to air that documentary in spite of the pressure to suppress it. Now, the rest of the story is this. A bit of irony and a lot of sadness on my part. That law that was changed the following Tuesday because of this documentary began giving great power to an agency called the Marine Mammal Protection, or the Marine Mammal Agency. I don't know what the heck it's called. In the last 30 years, in addition to protecting the dolphins and enforcing that law, they have become one of the most cancerous, bloated bureaucracies around. So typical of what happens to government bureaucracies that start out, as my producer Dan pointed out, they start out with a noble cause, and they transform into a self-serving cesspool. And indeed, this is one. If you saw some of the cases that have been aired in the last 2 years, particularly one famous one in Monterey Bay, these political shills, and that's what they are. It's one of the easiest jobs to appoint campaign workers and political shills to, because what is there to do? You can pretend to be a cop. You go out and you write citations to fishermen. You find one fish out of 1,000 that's a quarter of an inch shorter, according to your tape, than the limit. Then you cite the fisherman, automatic, maybe $500, maybe $1,000 fine. If they struggle, if they object, they're immediately notified. Well, the fine can go up to $2,500 now. And if they continue to struggle, then they're threatened with $500,000 fines in federal court. That's exactly what they've been doing in a famous case in Monterey Bay. A woman there named Nancy Black, who ran some sort of whale watching service, but also did a lot of research for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's the one that has this Marine Mammal Agency as a branch in it. She was cited for ostensibly feeding a whale. Her argument was there was some blubber floating from a baby whale that had been killed by a killer whale, and all she did was get close to it or move it around so the killer whale would come close that was feeding on it anyway. At any rate, she was cited for that, and in the course of all the litigation, they asked her to produce or give them a film, according to them, by the way. Then they claimed that she lied to federal investigators or withheld evidence, and now they're charging her with a felony and fines up to $500,000, publicized all over the country. And the same thing has been happening all over the Northeast. So blatant that Senator Kerry and others have stepped in to demand hearings and to cut the budget of this agency. But indeed, if you want an example of how bureaucracies, federal agencies, state, whatever it is, naturally progress to becoming cancerous in the sense they just keep growing and engulfing everything, meaning everyone's money, and have to attack the population to justify their existence. They must find things, they must find fault, they must write citations, they must bring in money. And above all, they must expand their bureaucracy because every one of the initial employees wants to become a boss. He wants to justify hiring other people to do his or her job in the beginning. And every place you go, you find this. Then the top dogs, the top political shills, spend their time going to conferences and meetings around the world at public expense. You take a look at this NOAA operation. That's the head organization. And it is just sickening. Tens of thousands of them on the government payroll, making $80,000 to $100,000 a year, guaranteed 6-8 weeks a year vacation. They figured out one way or another was sick leave and normal leave and excuses to go to meetings. No real requirements to do any work. And they drag down benefits, federal benefits and pensions, 5 times greater than the average working family in the private sector of this country. That is one of the biggest problems we have with our economy in this nation. The way that the bureaucracies feed off of the body of the economy like a cancer, with no concern about what they're killing. And that indeed is what characterizes a cancer. The cancer runs amok. It takes over all the nutrients and the support services of the normal cells in a body, and it eventually kills the body. It kills its host. It's so selfish that it doesn't even generally put any checks or any bounds on its appetite. And that is what's been happening for a long time with government agencies. Now, I'm not knocking all government workers. We have essential services, education, law enforcement, fire protection, maintenance of our facilities, people who are really out working and doing valuable jobs. But their effectiveness is killed by the freeloaders and agencies like this NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, that's another gimmick. That agency, NOAA, was originally established to do real scientific research on our oceans and the atmosphere. Some of the first computer models to study global warming were done by the NOAA people in Boulder, Colorado. But when it came time to create this agency to protect the marine mammals, since NOAA was already involved with the ocean, somehow or another this agency got shoved under NOAA. Today, the Marine Mammal Protection Operation is an army of absolute certifiable idiots, nothing to do with science, political shills everywhere. And they overshadow the scientists. The scientists in the agency I've talked to are embarrassed and ashamed. Think about it. That's what your dollars are paying for. Well, you have a new president or a new administration, same president. You think he's going to face up to this problem for the sake of the working people of this country? Let's hope he does. I'm going to push very hard. You've noticed I've been pushing campaigns for the last couple of years to use the biggest resource we have in this nation, natural gas, and is moving very rapidly. I'll give you some reports here in this hour as we go along. But the lines are open for you, and so is this switchboard. Let's hear what you're interested in.